I have a couple Woods vacuum cups here that are in really rough shape, and most people would probably throw them out when they get this bad. I bought them secondhand, so they were not maintained at all. This one I went through yesterday and fixed. It was just as bad as this one is, and they both pump up, which means that the check valve is most likely working, but they both leak very quickly, so they don't maintain any pressure. The most common reason this would happen is going to be that the rings would get clogged underneath, but I already checked them, and the rings are good on this one. So in this case, it's most certainly, like the other one was, is corrosion down in here, and they don't sell the replacement U-cups for this, and there's also corrosion inside the brass, so I'm going to go through how to restore all that, as well as the other basic easy fixes while I'm doing it. The rings underneath, this is what holds the vacuum. So if you look underneath, there's these 3 sets of rings, 2 sets of rings, three ridges, 2 sets of the actual vacuum rings. And they, if these get clogged up with caulking or anything else, this cup won't hold the vacuum and it'll leak out there also. So that's the first thing you can do, and you can just cut that out with a knife, being careful not to cut through the little dividers ideally. But in this case, this is good, so I'm going to move on to the next step, which is to pull this plunger out. And this one's actually a little bit stuck, so I'm going to have to go work on that a little bit with some heat. Normally these would just pull out right here, but this one is seized up from corrosion. It's this separate small piece of brass that you see on the outside needs to pull out from this main body, and it won't. So hopefully the corrosion is just around the outside here. In a perfect world, I just heat up this outside housing to expand that away from the inner, but as long as everything gets hot, it should break. The corrosion seal usually works. So I'm going to put some MAP gas to this right now. You don't want to get this end here too hot. This is where the rubber is, that the U-cup that's irreplaceable, so just keep the heat sort of towards the back end and hopefully around the very end. If you're worried about the paint, propane won't get as hot and usually doesn't burn the paint off. This might burn the paint, we'll see. Now I'm just going to give them a little shot of liquid wrench penetrating oil right between the body and that thin brass flange right here. You don't usually want to use an oil down in this housing. I'm going to clean this all out anyway because I think the other one had petroleum oil in it. But you want to use a silicone grease when you're lubing this up after. There it is. Yep, just as bad as the other one was. Alright, I'm going to spray this out in here with brake cleaner, and this as well. And I'm going to try not to get brake cleaner on this just yet. You don't want to soak this rubber with solvent because some of the solvents can damage it, and these U-cups are what needs to make the seal, and they're irreplaceable. Actually, I'm going to take these screws out as long as I'm going to clean it with a brake cleaner now. And clean up the check valve area, just because the last one was pretty dirty. Even though the check valve isn't bad yet, it's not too far away. It was pretty close to being clogged up on the other one that I just restored. So you take out all 6 of these screws, and then the 2 screws on the end here. When all the screws are out, there's just a little aluminum piece that goes down into the rubber there. Sometimes they're a little bit stuck, like any piece of metal that goes into a hose and sticks for a while will be. So if it's sticking at all, just twist it back and forth until you feel it breaking free. If you really need to, you can also put pliers on there and actually move the rubber, although don't twist it too far. You can crack the rubber. That's out. Handle's free. And this pad, this part comes in the restore kits also. You just get a little clogged up with dirt sometimes, although I don't really think it contributes much to anything going bad. In the scheme of things, it's still pretty clean on the backside, and this one's in really rough shape. This is the check valve here. Looks like I lost it, or it's stuck in the... Oh, here it is. This little nylon ball is the check valve. You can even see it in my hand. And that just sits in the back here. This O-ring is also a replacement part in the restore kit that they send you. These also you shouldn't need to be replaced. You can just put some grease around them, although make sure you don't get any grease in that check valve area. And this one is actually in better shape than the other one was. This isn't very corroded at all in there. If it is corroded, the last one what I did was just some solvent, and I think the plastic tube for one of these carb cleaners to clean it out. You don't want to put metal down in there because this is aluminum, and if you use anything harder than aluminum, which is almost everything, it'll scratch up the metal and then your check valve might not seal. I did this outside so that the brake cleaner wouldn't stink up the garage, but when I did cleaned here, I ran the rag underneath this rubber seal between this aluminum end just to clean all the gunk out in there so it won't clog up again afterwards. This is the sealing surface that really matters on these, which is usually what goes bad. Actually, this one looks really, really good, so this should be an easy fix compared to the last one. And then here I sprayed brake clean down that, and I'm going to just put a rag down and then a screwdriver because there's some hardened petroleum grease, which it looks like they used some sort of grease. It's not silicone down there, and just got to clean that all out. Clean out this check valve seat, I just use a little plastic end for one of the brake cleaners and just scrape out all the corrosion. Probably use a piece of wood also, or a toothpick or a chunk of a popsicle stick. And then once I start getting some loose material, just blow that out. Some compressed air. If you ever need a good blow on these Seagens, that's a 205, but all their models work really well and last forever. They're made in Switzerland. I'm going to finish it off with just a little bit of brake cleaner. Now I can put the check valve back in. And the most important part of the fix is I need to clean the body out inside where that rubber U-cup meets. If you look down in there, you can see there's a ridge. Anything towards past the halfway point, this beginning doesn't matter so much, but we need to clean out where the U-cup scrapes against spilled pressure, and that has to hold the seal for the air not to leak out. So I'm going to use a Scotch-Brite pad and sand that down with a screwdriver inside. Now I just feel with my finger where that ridge is, and this one isn't really that bad compared to the other one. So about there, gauge it with my finger, gauge where that is on the screwdriver so I know how far I need to go down, and then wrap my Scotch-Brite, see this side looks cleanest, abrasive around the screwdriver. And I'm putting pressure against the walls of the body inside and turning the screwdriver slowly. I guess ideally you would do this in the crosshatch pattern like an engine, but I sort of tried to do in the last one eventually to finish, but I don't think it really matters. After I was done with the other one, it went from holding no pressure to holding pressure for about a half hour. So this should be even better considering it's in better condition. And then after this is done, you want to blow this out so that you don't wind up with any aluminum oxide abrasive left down in here to wear the U-cup. Which is also why it's important to blow out any solvent or oil or anything that would trap the oxide grit in there. Alright, I think we'll give that a shot after I blow it out. And then part 2 of this seal is in much better shape than the other one. It feels pretty soft too, which is good. But I'm just going to give it a quick wipe with some acetone. You can use lacquer thinner. Probably wouldn't use xylene or paint thinner, but they might work if you clean them off afterwards. Acetone, you can also just use nail polish remover. Everybody has that in their house, well, most people. And so you just wipe this down. And acetone will take off and soften a rubber and plastics if you leave it on long enough. So just, which is also part of the idea here, to smooth out any imperfections in the rubber. And this one is not bad at all, though, like I said. So just going around, and you can see it's turning a little bit black. I'm not sure if that's just brass residue or rubber, but just continue wiping all around that sealing lip. Now I'm going to go blow this housing out with compressed air and give it a test shot and see how it holds. And now I'm just going to give it a test. So I put my check valve assembly back on hand to seal that up. One screw in here to hold it. And I haven't greased anything up yet, just in case I have to come back and sand it a little bit more. I don't want to have to clean out the grease before I sand. But if you give it a tap, that'll usually knock anything loose. If it is going to leak, that one moved a little bit, but that might just be the original assembly because there's no grease in it. Seems like it's holding other than that. Oh, no, still needs a little bit. Yeah, so that's a lot better, but it still needs a little bit more sanding. I have this sanded again and wiped down with a rag and blown out. And the grease is also going to help it seal. So by just helping the U-cup retract evenly and sealing any small gouges inside. But I would like to see it seal a little bit better than it did last time. But if it doesn't this time, I'll probably just put some grease in and try it anyway. On my second sand there, I don't think I filmed that, but I went more in a circle pattern to try to, because if you're just sanding up and down, you're going to leave gouges in the cylinder, small gouges, but gouges nonetheless that are in the direction that the air is going to leak out to break a seal. Yeah, that's much better this time, it seems like. So now that's should be good to go. So I'm going to put some grease in there and put it all back together. All of these are examples of silicone grease. And you can use any of these inside this. Don't use a regular grease or an oil because that'll get hard and cause the problems like I had before in this. Dielectric you can get at an auto parts store. This you can get at Home Depot in the plumbing section. This you can get on Amazon. Maybe I'll put a link in the description. I love this stuff. And this is the actual Woods grease. But I guess I'll just use this since I have it. And you don't need much, just a little bit around the outside of this. And then I'm going to put a little bit down the body of the housing and a little bit on this outside just to try to prevent more of that corrosion from forming. Just a thin layer on all this stuff. It'll get spread around as you use it. I'm also going to put some grease around the body of this because it seems to want to get stuck in here. Just a real little bit around the O-ring. And a new check ball so I don't have to look for the one that I just dropped. Good as new. Just leave that there and see how long it takes to lose suction.